Joining us now on the Deseret First Credit Union Hotline is one of the all-time great linebackers at BYU, former NFL star Brady Poppinga, Super Bowl champion. Brady, welcome back to BYU Sports Nation.
Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Good morning to you.
Absolutely. Good morning back at you. And let's start with this. In a 4-3 defensive scheme, which BYU is in year two under Kalani Sitake and defensive coordinator Ilaisa Tuiaki, if you had an ideal position to lead the team in tackles, which would it be?
Oh, it's going to be the Mike linebacker, Pau, because everything's funneled to him and everything's set up for him to make all the tackles. For example, any outside run is either going to be funneled to the inside by an outside defensive end, or if he happens to be inside on let's say a tight end, the outside backer, Fred Warner, or Francis Bernard's going to be basically they're going to be setting the middle backer up for all the tackles. I don't want to get too in-depth on the X's and O's, but it's all about the Mike backer. You go back to the Freight Train Morris days when, Ken Schmidt was a D coordinator / linebackers coach, the same kind of idea. Now, the defense has evolved a little bit since then, but all 4-3s, in terms of their philosophy of where they want the ball to end up, is that your middle linebacker, if he doesn't end up becoming your leading tackler, then you need to find a new middle linebacker. Because if it ends up being your safety, which a lot of times that happens on some teams, you know that the front seven is not too good. But I'll say, it's going to be Pau. He's going to lead the team in tackles, bearing his health.
Now, BYU has 3 returning starters, and there's some playmakers. 2 of these 3 had pick sixes last year in Warner and Bernard. What do you think of this group of Fred Warner, Butch Powell, and Francis Bernard?
I like them. They're versatile. They're active. Obviously Fred Warner brings the most to the table. I almost want to see them walk Fred Warner up a little more and use him as a stand-up outside rusher, a la 3-4 outside backer, and then at times drop him into coverage because I think that's his best position. But, you've seen him last year basically play like in nickel situations like the nickel, which is generally reserved for a cornerback / defensive back type body who he excelled in that position. But I like Fred a lot. I see a lot of Kyle Van Noy in him, except a more disciplined version. Kyle was off the reservation, and he made up for that and made some good plays. He was.
I know your brother loved that in the box.
As my brother says, I say, we all say, is if you can go out there and, spin on your head and do backflips and cartwheels and yet still make plays, we don't care how you do it as long as you make plays. And that was Kyle Van Noy to a T. But Freddie's very technically sound, very disciplined, stays in his lane, and like I said, he's very talented at all facets of playing linebacker, whether that's rushing, covering, stopping the run. And with Kafusi as his coach, I know that he's going to be teaching a lot of pass rush moves and skills. So hopefully they use him in that capacity just to create a little bit of deception, because I know last year's defense was very predictable. And so that could be one little improvement and tweak they make is adding a little bit more unpredictability to their defensive scheme, and Fred Warner could be big time in that. And obviously Francis, I think it was huge for him to go from running back to linebacker because he now knows, the very things that those running backs are trying to do because he's been in their position, and I think that gives him an advantage. But I like him across the board. And I like power, I like his toughness, I like his tenacity, and I like his leverage. I like how he gets up under offensive linemen's pads and how he delivers blows on ball carriers low and through their chest and their center mass of their body. And so I think overall they have a very talented, deep, and versatile linebacking core.
At the next level, Fred Warner seems like a linebacker naturally, but is there a chance he's like a nickel back or can increase his speed a little bit to even be a safety in some positions, or am I crazy?
No. Whoa. Pull back the brakes there, buddy. Oh. He's a linebacker. He's not going to be a safety, nor is he going to be a defensive back. The guy's a linebacker. Now, he would be fantastic in many different schemes, but like I said, the key is his rushing ability. Can he rush the passer? Because today's NFL, as college has always been, and in college you got superior athletes like a Fred Warner who can make up for his lack of, you could say, DB-like abilities, although in comparison to other linebackers, he's very good in coverage. But you put him in the NFL level where he has to walk out on guys in the slot receiver like Julian Edelman or Brandon Cooks. Those kind of guys would eat him alive. Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb with the Green Bay Packers do the same thing. And so his greatest value is going to be able to be, can he rush the passer? Because we know that he can do the other things. We know that on running situations or big personnel situations, he can go out there and run with tight ends and, stop the run, set the edge, those kinds of things. But if you want to stay on that obvious passing down, you got to be a rusher. And so that's why, and I think that's an ability he has. But again, it's going to be up to Kalani and that defensive staff to factor that into the scheme? Or are they going to feature that as one of their kind of plans with Fred Warner? Because if they do, I do believe it not only will help them this year, but it also help Fred in terms of his value in the NFL.
Brady Poppinga with us on BYU Sports Nation. Of course, Cougar great, NFL analyst now, and NFL alumnus. Speaking of the NFL, recently on NFL.com, their pool of riders listed Fred Warner at number 9 on a top 10 list of college linebackers to watch in 2017. Is that too high, too low, or just right for a guy like Fred?
Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. I don't even know, half the guys who get drafted in the first day or whatever, first 3-4 rounds aren't even on that list. So we don't know. I mean, the people making those lists, they're going off of some junior day numbers. They're going off of what they're hearing between quotations. But let's be honest. If you're a scout out there and you're good, are you really going to want people to know who you like? Because if all of a sudden you're like, oh, I really like this guy. Yeah, everybody go to BYU, check out Fred Warner. He's my guy. And they really like him. Guess what? It increases his demand. And all of a sudden you're going to have to pay a higher price to bring him in. If anything, you're going to be saying, hey, go check out this guy because he's awesome. We love him. And he's a guy you hate. So everybody is distracted with somebody else. So I don't pay attention to any of those. A lot of it's going to come down to how Fred performs this year. And if he plays anywhere near where he did last year, I don't see why he wouldn't be a top linebacker. And as everybody knows, it doesn't matter where you start. All that matters is the scheme you get put into. And, I mean, Kyle Van Noy, I think, is the greatest example of that, where he starts off in Detroit and they literally were wasting him away as an off-the-ball linebacker. And all of a sudden he goes to New England in a scheme that fits his talents. And guess what happens? He goes and wins the Super Bowl, and he plays a lot more, and he has a lot more impactful role. So all these lists and predictions, they mean absolutely nothing.
We're just waiting for games to be played so we read stuff like that, let's be honest.
Well, if you want to talk about something, I mean, I've tweeted it out there. I don't know you guys were. I tweeted out there. Everybody thinks that Luke Staley, just because he won a Doak Walker Award, is the best BYU running back in history. And I'm here to tell you that he's not. I mean, if you want to go down that road, we go down that road.
Brady, you've got Jerem raising his eyebrows a little bit.
Yeah, well, okay. I know you tweeted that out, but tell people who your top couple of guys were in BYU history, and we can discuss the top running backs ever.
Number 1 is Jamal Williams.
Okay.
Number 2, Harvey Unga. Number 3, Curtis Brown. 4 was Pete Van Valkenburg, and 5 was Ronnie Jenkins. And the reason is it's simple.
You have Pete Van Valkenburg above Luke Staley.
Oh, yeah. Well, let me tell you the difference.
You have something against Luke?
Oh, no, it's simple. I play with the guy. And, I mean, I know him very well. I watched him firsthand for 2 years straight. And the problem with Luke was he was a guy that everybody else had to cater to so that he could be in the best position to succeed. So everybody else had to prop him up. Whereas everybody else before him on that list, guess what they did? They did it reverse. They propped everybody else up. And so when you look at Luke, he was a guy that he didn't like football. I mean, I remember one time getting ready to go into practice, and the guy's sulking in the corner saying how much he hates football. He hates to be out there, and when you go out there, everybody has to, like I said, cater to him. They have to, come on, Luke, and really worry about him. Gary Crone's like, all right, man, we got to make sure he gets his touches. We got to make sure that he's happy. You got to make sure that he's in an ideal position to succeed, because he couldn't run between the tackles was another thing. And it's just because it was a willingness thing. He just didn't want to do it because he didn't enjoy the contact of the game. And then lastly, when you rank players, there's no way you can rank a guy high who missed as many games as he did because of injuries. The guy was injury prone for whatever reason, and you couldn't rely on him. You didn't know if you're going to have him. Like in 2001, we didn't have him at the end of the year. We didn't have Brian McDonald either, by the way, who was also a fantastic running back in his own right.
Yeah.
But you add all that up together, I mean, that's just not an all-time great guy. Now, I mean, he wins the Doak Walker Award. Now, that's, something that's decided by writers, remember. That's not something that's decided by players. And I'll tell you what, if I had to choose all those guys to play against, I would not choose Luke Staley. I'd choose Luke Staley as number 1 to go against because I know how to neutralize him versus those other guys like Jamal, Harvey. You could stack the box, you could set the edges, and they're still going to grind you out, wear you down, where by the third, middle of the third, going into the fourth quarter, they're going to be popping runs off. They used to be 3-yard gains, 4-yard gains now for 10, 15, whereas Luke is inverted. He would be a guy that maybe if you got him going at first, he could pop some off, but if you had to run him between the tackles throughout the duration of the game, he'd wear out. He would tap out. He didn't want to be there. Remember that. He didn't want to be there. He'd tap out, and they'd bring somebody else in to do the heavy lifting. So you just can't put a guy like that as an all-time great.
Unfiltered hot takes from Brady Poppinga on BYU Sports Nation.
Oh, it's not unfiltered. That's just the reality of life, guys. I'm sorry to break it to everybody, but
no, it's filtered. It's BYUtv.
You know, Grady won the Doug Walker Awards. Grady's getting all the accolades, but he knows. You know, we all know too.
I love the take on Jamal Williams because, quite frankly, I'm with you. I think he is the best BYU running back that the Cougars have ever seen because of all the things that you mentioned. He's now in Green Bay along with Taysom Hill and wide receiver Colby Pearson. What is the beginning of training camp like for those three BYU first-year NFL players in Green Bay?
Oh, it's simple. You go out there and you go out there with your shoulder pads in your locker, shorts, T-shirt, put your helmet on, and then you start installing all the simple schemes, and you start going out, and then you get the pads on. It gets a little more exciting. And Jamal is going to be a big part of that Packers offense, regardless of what happens in training camp, because bearing that he doesn't get injured, bearing that he doesn't go out there and have some kind of like short circuiting of the brain to where he's fumbling everywhere and not following through with his responsibilities, which I don't see him doing. But he's going to be a big part of that Packer offense. So the Packers, I would imagine, are going to try to protect him a little bit during the preseason. They're going to rest him. They're going to want him to carry a big load during the regular season because I do believe it's Ty Montgomery, who they list right now as their number one running back. They're going to use them both the same. They're going to do a two-back system, use Jamal more as the tough physical runner, use Ty more as a guy that they can manipulate defenses with and motion them out into wide receiver positions because Ty, who is the starting running back, was a receiver last year. That's why he wears an 80 number. So that's really his background. So they're going to want to protect him. But like guys like Taysom, Pearson's just got to go out there on special teams and be a demon. Blow dudes up without any pads on, be just an animal. He's got to get in fights. He's got to tear people's helmets off. That's life, guys. You got to go out there and you got to show that A, you want to be there, and B, that you're going to be a fighter. And you got to go out there and you got to make a statement, or else you're going to get lost in the crowd and they're just going to cut you. They're just another camp body. Taysom's got to go show some signs. He's going to get a lot of playing time in the preseason, so he's got to be ready. Like, this is his game. This is his season. This is game time for Taysom. And what he's got to show is he's got to show that he can lead an offense to score points in these preseason games, in their scrimmages, without using his legs and running the ball down the field. He's got to be able to use his legs more to buy time to pass than to run. And if he can do that, and just show promise, that, hey, I'm adapting to this new scheme. He already has some experience last year with Ty scheme. It's very similar to what Mike McCarthy runs. So he's got some carryover. But if he can show some promise in the pocket and he can show some patience and show that he can use his legs to get receivers open instead of using his legs to run, because we've seen it in college ranks, he will not last. He will get beat up. He just doesn't know how to protect himself. Then he's going to stick around. And I'm not saying he's going to make the team, but he may be their practice squad guy because he has so much potential, so much upside, so many tools that are uncoachable that he just needs to show a little twinkling of hope, and they're going to keep him around. So each guy has their own situation. It's cool they're all in it together, but I'll tell you, if you haven't been up to a Green Bay Packer training camp experience, people literally will plan their summer vacations from all different fan bases just to go there. It's a phenomenal experience. You get 10 to 20,000 fans per practice, whether you're in pads and whether you're not in pads. And again, you get to sort of etch your legacy as a Packer in this current day, and both Taysom, Pearson, and also Jamal have that opportunity.
Yeah, not every team lets guys ride BMX bikes with fans up to the field.
Get your bicycle out, which is
awesome.
Yeah.
That's that locker room, man. It's like 300 yards from the practice field. Like during the season, it's unbelievable. You have to get in your car because they don't have kids, waiting for bikes with you when it's snowing. You actually have to get in your car fully padded out. I remember doing that for the first time. I'm like, man, this is the first time I've been in a car, any kind of like mobile unit with my pads on since middle school. When we drive from, our middle school to the nearest opponent, we were fully padded out. There wasn't no locker rooms to change in, but that's just how it is in Green Bay.
Let's finish with this, Brady. BYU fall camp starts Thursday, which is pretty crazy. We're in July, but BYU.
Oh, it's terrible. I can't believe they did this.
No more two-a-days in college football, plus BYU plays in week 0, technically August 26th. What is a question that you are hoping to kind of start to get answered during this fall camp?
What question? I don't think there's going to be any answers in this fall camp. You know, look, the thing I like to see that I just haven't seen from a Ben Cahoon coached wide receiver unit is I haven't seen toughness like Ben Cahoon played with, to where they're going to go across, flail their body on the line, and make these diving catches. Now, they'll do it like in spurts, but I want to see it done all the time. Because I'll tell you, last year, the wide receiver core probably cost BYU at least 2 or 3 games of those close games because of just run-of-the-mill conventional drop passes, which I attribute to coaching. And I don't know what Ben, like I said, he was a phenomenal player. Your prototypical receiver, but for some reason he just can't relay that toughness. You know, Holiday did a nice job of that. And so that's my biggest question mark. And camp isn't going to teach us anything because they do limited hitting and, you know, you're in your comfort zone and you're not getting jam-pressed by guys from LSU that are some of the best jam-pressed corners maybe in the country. They're going to be talking smack. They're going to be trying to get in your head, and you're going to have to be able to go look them in the eye, and you're going to have to basically, without saying a word, you're going to have to kick their trash. You know what I mean? And you're going to have to keep your head on you. You're going to have to compete, and you're going to have to beat them with your play and not getting any kind of jibber jabbers. Remember Margin Hooks with the guy by the name of Fred Smoot back when Mississippi State came up to BYU in 2000. He got Margin Hooks out of his game, and Margin Hooks was deemed worthless. Now, Ben Cahoon wasn't the coach at the time, but the point is I like to see the receivers play with more toughness, play like Ben Cahoon played, and make those impossible catches, make them just a consistent routine catch. Help your quarterback out because he's going to throw you open. He's going to put it on a dime before you even turn. We're going to see if they're going to be able to. If they can, I'm going to tell you, this is going to be a fun year. And if they can't, you know, there's going to be a lot of frustration, a lot of close misses. But that, to me, is the biggest question mark going into camp. But, again, camp won't answer that for us.
Great stuff, Brady. We appreciate the time. Know how busy you are. Good luck with your NFL analysis and the 17 different ventures you have going professionally right now.